Hello, everybody, and welcome back into another episode of the Hockey Writers Roundtable season preview edition. As we keep rolling through the NHL teams, we are up to the Florida Panthers. I've got Joey Ganzi here. He covers the Panthers, obviously. How's it going, Joey, as we get ready for a new season?
It's going fantastic. I'm ready for another great season of Panthers hockey. I got a very bitter taste in my mouth from this past cup final, but hopefully we'll use that to drive the team forward.
Yes, as you mentioned, the Panthers did go into the Stanley Cup final. Very surprising run to the final. Got through a bunch of really good teams. First of all, the best team ever, like in regular season history now, the Boston Bruins. They got rid of them in the first round, and then went through a few other really strong teams. The Toronto Maple Leafs. Then hit a wall. I mean, they hit a wall with the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, that team just seemed like a juggernaut. They dismantled Bobrovsky. He looked so good throughout the rest of the playoffs. It just ended up being that the Golden Knights were just a better team, it seemed. So, I mean, as we go into this next season, it's going to be interesting to see how the Panthers kind of bounce back from that, see where they go. But let's get started and talk about the offense, which I mean, didn't really have a lot of changes in the offseason. Still led by the man, Matthew Tkachuk, who basically carried the team throughout the playoffs along with Bobrovsky. Although Carter Verhaeghe had a really good playoffs. There was a lot of other guys that did really well as well. So, I mean, it wasn't just him, but he is the leader back there. And so let's start with that and just with the new addition before we get kind of into the rest of it. They only really added Evan Rodrigues as a major piece. They added some depth guys, but he's the one that kind of sticks out. What do you feel his expectations should be going to this season? Does he have to be a major contributor, or what do you think about Rodrigues being added to the Panthers?
I think it's a great addition to the team. I think they're trying to make up for the loss of Anthony Duclair, who just got dealt at the deadline to San Jose. They did get Steven Lorenz out of there, who's actually a pretty decent fourth line type of player, so he's going to add more grit to that fourth line. But Rodrigues had some great years in Colorado, had some great years in Pittsburgh. I don't know if he's the same player he once was, and they got him at a really, really fair deal. I believe it was, quote me if I'm wrong on this, I believe it was for like $3 million a year for 4 years. Yeah. So they got someone who's shown he can contribute to the lineup. I don't think he's going to be a Tkachuk or a Barkov, but he's definitely going to be enough to stabilize the top six and provide enough to give the Panthers some offensive firepower outside of Tkachuk and Barkey.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any other storylines you're kind of watching through this forward group? Like I said, that's the only new addition. You mentioned Lorenz, so he's going to kind of add depth to that fourth line. But for the most part, you've got the main pieces returning. Alexander Barkov, who may win a Selke this year with Bergeron out of the league. But yeah, Verhaeghe, you mentioned already. Sam Bennett coming back, Sam Reinhart, all those main guys. Do you have anything else you're kind of following going into the season? Is this unit still strong enough to potentially make another run to the Stanley Cup final, or was that kind of a one and done type thing?
I do believe that the forward core is strong enough to get back to the playoffs, but I think the team is still constructed very differently. I don't see them getting back to the cup final this season. But the one thing I'm paying attention to is just how high Matthew Tkachuk can go. I think I can agree with a lot of people who are paying attention to the Panthers because it feels like every single season or in the one season is just the tip of the iceberg for what's to come for this guy. He didn't break his career high which he set with Calgary, and I think he's going to try to do it this year because he's everything that Florida has been looking for years. He's not afraid to get dirty. He can score goals on a whim, and he's a leader in the locker room. He's everything they've been looking for.
Yeah, I think if Barkov wasn't the captain, he'd probably be. So, I mean, Barkov definitely is deserving of being the captain, but they've basically got two captains on this team. And yeah, Tkachuk does, I think he has a lot more to give. He's only 25 years old. He's just entering that prime.
Crap, he's younger than me.
Right? Insane. So, I mean, he is definitely got a lot more points, I think, in him. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in the second season in Florida. Maybe put up another 100 points or more, and we'll see. All right, moving on to the defense, and this is where there were some changes. They did add Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who was bought out by the Vancouver Canucks, to a pretty good deal, 2.25. Not he's still getting paid by the Canucks, obviously, because of the buyout, but he's pretty budget friendly deal. He still has, he can probably still contribute to a blue line. There is some injury issues kind of with Ekblad and Montour. But, this group is still pretty strong. What do you think about the defense going into this season, starting with Ekman-Larsson being added?
Ekman-Larsson I see as a low risk, high reward deal. He, as you've seen, he is not the same player he was when he was, it was Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just making sure. When he was in Arizona, he was a pretty good blue liner, but it feels like the moment he came into Vancouver, he just became a shell of his former self. I think this is a chance for him to bounce back and try to regain form. And it's on a team friendly deal. So if he ends up not having the game he once was, it's unfortunately they could just wash their hands with the whole deal and not have to worry about it. Ultimately it's a low risk, high reward. And a lot of the new additions on defense, with Mike Riley, with Dmitry Kulikov, with Nico Mikola. I see those as more of depth pieces. The only true defensive piece I see trying to replace somebody is Nico Mikola with grit and trying to make up for the absence of Radko Gudas, which Gudas during the regular season wasn't that great defensively, but typically in the playoffs, you're going to need some sort of sandpaper, and I think that's the reason they brought Nico Mikola in. And it's ultimately going to come down to who's going to come back in the lineup with Ekblad and Montour. I think they're just trying to make it as far as they can with them out of the lineup and see who sticks out on that team. They also do have some young prospects in Matt Kiersted and Lucas Carlson, so they could see some ice time in the time span that Ekblad and Montour are getting healthy.
Better hope that maybe someone will step up like Lindholm did in Boston when they were missing those two big pieces. But I mean, we'll see. It just seems like it's the kind of the similar thing because Boston was missing those two major guys, McAvoy and Grzelcyk to start the season, and didn't seem to miss a beat because they had Lindholm all of a sudden come out and become the main guy. So I mean, you've got guys like Forsling who's had really good seasons. Ekman-Larsson could potentially be that guy to take on a bunch more minutes just to start. He is capable of playing a lot. So I mean, if he's healthy, he could kind of fill that void in the meantime while they're waiting, right? So it's gonna be interesting to watch that throughout the beginning of the season as these guys are out because Montour's out potentially 3 months, and that's going into like December, January, maybe, unless he gets healthy earlier. But it's a big loss because Montour had a heck of a season last year. So,
oh yeah, I think he had the most points by a Panthers defenseman in a single playoff run, which is remarkable. 8 goals, 5 assists through 21 games.
Yeah, so I mean that's a big piece missing out of your lineup. So we'll see who kind of steps up and fills it. I don't know if anyone can, but we'll see. All right, goaltending. And we already mentioned one of these guys, and that is Bobrovsky, who had a ridiculously good playoffs where he kind of made up for that, bad seasons that he's had so far. $10 million is still the price tag on this guy. Spencer Knight cleared from being in player assistance program. He's back. But they also signed another goaltender, and that was Anthony Stolarz, right? So is that signing, does that mean that Spencer Knight, they're not confident he's going to be the backup, or is it just kind of depth moving forward?
I don't think Spencer Knight is 100% ready, and I think that's why they made the signing in the first place as more of a stopgap. Granted, there's still 2 months left to go before the season starts. My thought process, they could send him down and try to get him some reps to try to get back into the swing of things. But Stolarz, my apologies, is just there to be a stopgap. And Bobrovsky, we talked about before, great playoff run, amazing playoff run. But I have to see that more consistently from him in the regular season to be 100% on him. Mm-hmm. Because throughout his entire tenure as a Panther, he was inconsistent. Like he'll have a couple good weeks where he's an all-star, and then a couple good weeks a couple weeks where he's just, we called him Goaltending. Like it was bad. Like, I have to see more consistency from him to be a bit more confident on him. But if the defense gets better, the workload will not be as heavy on Bobrovsky. But I do think they're going to try to see about running back the tandem with Bobrovsky and Knight, but ultimately depends on if Knight is ready come opening night.
Yeah, I think adding Stolarz is basically, yeah, like you say, kind of maybe a safety net. They have a guy that, Stolarz has shown he can play in the NHL. He was with Anaheim there, was okay as a backup to Gibson, had some really good stretches. So he's ultimately I think that safety net, just in case, like you said, Knight's not ready to go. But we'll see, because they don't have Alex Lyon anymore. He's in Detroit. Had a really good stretch there with the Panthers too. So we'll see if Stolarz can maybe potentially be that similar goaltender. I mean, it could happen, right? Okay, we've talked about the three sections of the team. Let's talk about how they stack up in this Atlantic Division, which is tough. I mean, they barely made it into the playoffs on the back of Pittsburgh losing, and they didn't make it easy. So then this division didn't get any easier. So what do you think about how they stack up against the different teams in this division?
It's going to be a lot tougher for them than it was. They did show they can beat them in this past playoff run, but everyone, I think maybe except for Boston or Montreal, has gotten better. The Lightning are always a good contender. The Maple Leafs, despite all the changes they made, they're still a tough team. The Senators got better. It's going to be a lot tougher for them to try to see by making in the top three in the division. They're probably going to have to try to sneak into a wild card spot if they want to get back to the dance. Compared to the rest of the conference, again, same thing. Everyone's just gotten better. Carolina's loading up for what looks like another cup run. They're going to try to go for it this time. I think that if they get swept again, they might as well just blow it up. But everyone in that division conference just got better. If they want to get into this postseason, they're going to have to sneak in as a wild card because no one is going to give up those division spots.
No way. And they had to do that last season anyway. Made it to the Stanley Cup final. So it's not necessarily necessary they need to do that, but it could be that that's just a one and done destiny type thing. I mean, probably won't happen again. And quick fire time. And these are all fun questions. I love doing all these because they're fun. And there's a lot of articles that are based around these questions. So let's start with one or two breakout stars for the Panthers this season.
I'm going to take Eetu Luostarinen and Anton Lundell. Eetu Luostarinen was out in the Cup final, but he showed throughout the entire playoff run and the regular season just how valuable he truly was as a center and a winger. And I'm going to say Anton Lundell because that man is slowly turning into a mini Barkov. He's been phenomenal. He can play well in the kill. He can play offense. He's decent in the circle. I think he's going to take that next step in his development.
Only 21 years old too. Yeah, I've often compared him to Barkov too. He is a very solid two-way center, and they're lucky to have two of them. So there you go. We'll see how Lundell does this season. He's got a pretty good mentor in Barkov, that's for sure. All right. One player needs to bounce back from last season.
I'm going to say Aaron Ekblad. The season before, he was doing okay until he had that terrible injury that just cut him off. But it seems like he never really came back to form. He gave up the puck a lot. I don't remember what his exact stats were, but I believe he was in the minus in his plus minus rating. He just was constantly giving up the puck, and it got to the point where Brooks Koepka literally brought in a traffic cone and was pointing right at him. It's unfortunately he needs to step up. He's a first overall pick. He's a Rookie of the Year winner for a reason, and he has to show it this season. He has to, or he could be on the chopping block.
Yeah, once he's recovered from his injury, which we don't know how long that'll be. So yeah, he's going to be behind the eight ball, unfortunately, to be able to bounce back too. All right, something that could be an X factor this season. It doesn't have to be a player. It can be just a situation like the power play. What do you have?
I'm going to say Reinhart. Reinhart he's always come through and provided big goals, both in the regular season and the playoffs. I think he led I'm just going to check some stats here. I believe he led I believe he led all Panthers in playoff points, if I'm not mistaken. No, let me rephrase that. He was fourth in playoff points, but he led the team in power play goals. Power play. That's what I'm saying. He's been electric. He's great on the power play. He's the probably one of the best pieces I've ever gotten. It's probably the one few occasions where a trade has worked on both teams, with Buffalo getting Devin Levi and he's starting to
Yeah.
develop. He's going to be a massive X factor. He's been great on the second and third line, and if he steps up, the Panthers are going to be a problem offensively.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people thought he had a bad season last year. He didn't. He had 31 goals. Didn't have the 82 points. Didn't have as many assists, but he almost scored the same amount as his first season in Florida. So didn't have a bad season. Okay, one rookie or prospect that could surprise and make the roster out of training camp. There are a few spots that they could potentially take, but what do you got?
I'm gonna say John Ludwig. He's been on that in that system for a very, very long time. He just recently signed a two-way contract to stay with the team. They do have him in the future. He's been great on the back end in Charlotte. I think he's gonna try to see about making it into this roster.
Yeah, well, like you said, with all those injuries to start the season, he could have a spot. He could try to beat out one of these guys. So yeah, it's a good choice. All right, a prospect to watch. Now, this doesn't have to be a guy that'll make the roster or anything, just someone in the system that everyone should be watching this season.
I'm gonna say Lucas Carlson because he's been in the lineup before. He's constantly growing into a great defenseman. He's skilled. He doesn't mind getting dirty. He was phenomenal in Charlotte this past season, both in the playoffs and the regular season. And if you remember from the shortened season of 2021, or no, the season after that, my apologies, where they went on that amazing run, they won the President's Trophy. He had a game against Carolina that he made this unbelievable save with just his stick as a defense. I was blown away. I watched that like on replay just for fun. It's incredible. He's gonna try to see about getting out of camp and trying to get his roster spot that he so deserves. And this is the best opportunity to do so without Ekblad and Montour.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some opportunities for these guys, especially on defense, to make the roster to start and maybe keep their roster spot and force a trade. Who knows? I mean, that could definitely happen. All right, this could be pretty easy, especially on the forward side. Who's going to lead the team in scoring on forwards and defense?
Isn't it obvious, Matthew? His name is Matthew Tkachuk. I said before, I think we've talked about it again. He's electric. He doesn't mind getting dirty. He's willing to go to he can score from pretty much anywhere. He's always parked in front of the net. He's always being a pest. Hope as long as he doesn't get suspended or gets injured, he's going to lead this team in scoring.
Yeah. What about defense? Now, because Montour's not starting the season, this could have someone else different.
I'm going to say Gustav Forsling. He's actually really good on the back end, both offensively, and I think he was a power play quarterback for a long time for the past couple of seasons. I think he if Montour and Ekblad are out for as long as we think they're going to be, it's going to be Gustav Forsling. He's shown he can play well offensively.
I love Forsling. I'm still bitter that he's not with the Canucks anymore as a prospect, but never played a game with them. But he was a prospect in the system, and they traded him away, and I still don't like it. All right, a player that could be traded before the deadline this year.
I'm gonna say Sam Reinhart because there's a chance he could be a cap casualty next season. They have a lot of forwards locked up at $4 or $5 million a year. The only two big forwards that are locked up for a ton of money are Tkachuk and Barkov. And they do have Ekblad locked up long term for a lot of money, but they're going to try to look for some extra cash to try to re-sign Montour. He's going to be a free agent at the end of this season. They do have a ton at forward, so I think unfortunately he's going to be the odd one out because I think they're going to want to try to keep Sam Bennett for the grit, but Reinhart is they can get a lot for him, so he's probably going to be gone.
Reinhart, an X factor and trade bait. Wow.
Yeah. I'm pretty crazy.
All right, to finish the show, a bold prediction or a hot take for this season.
Matthew Tkachuk will lead the league in points.
Nice. Now that's
I don't know how bold that is, but I'm pretty confident.
I don't know. That's pretty bold since you got Connor McDavid in the league. So
That's my bold prediction. He's going to be first in the league in points.
because
Book
McDavid,
it.
if McDavid can do this 160, whatever he did last season, that's a
150,
pretty big, that's a pretty big mountain. But yeah, that's a bold take then. That's a bold one. All right. Well, thanks, Joey, for coming on the show to preview the Florida Panthers season this year. We'll see if they can make it back to the Stanley Cup final. It's very low percentage because there's so many good teams. But you never know. We'll see how it kind of all goes. They still got a pretty strong team. See if they can get through those injuries on defense. But thanks for joining. And before we get going, give everyone your social media where they can find you.
Absolutely. On Twitter, I go under at Mr_Joestar. I constantly cover the Panthers for the Hockey Writers at Joey Ganzi. I try to post at least once a week. I try to come on these talk shows all the time. Please give me a like, give me a follow, and thank you so much if you get the chance to read any of my stuff.
All right. Sounds good. Make sure it's following all the Florida Panthers. I believe you're the only one, but follow Joey. There you go. Florida Panthers coverage of the Hockey Writers. He's your guy. So make sure checking out all the articles at hockeywriters.com. We got season preview stuff coming out every day. We got videos coming out every day as well. So you want to take a look at any of the other teams we got going on. You'll have one in your timeline or whatever, your homepage on YouTube every day. So make sure checking all that out. Give us the video a like, follow the Hockey Writers on Twitter and X, whatever that they want to call it right now. And subscribe to the name. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and throw the comments in the below. You can answer all the quick fire questions yourself and interact with us there. And until next time, we'll see you on another episode of the Hockey Writers Roundtable season preview shows.